Hi everyone, it's me. If you're new here, my name's Alanna and I'm a Canadian, but I live here in the UK. And if you're not new here, hey, how's it going? Can you believe we've never talked about fitness, exercise, health, lifestyle ever? Because I feel like that's kind of wild. I've come up with 12/13, maybe I didn't count properly, fitness differences that you'll see here in the UK versus back home in Canada / America / North America. Fitness in the US and Canada is basically the same thing. Anyway, that's the vibe for today. Have a seat, get cozy, put your feet up, and without further ado, let's go. Number one, and I think one of the most noticeable differences is daily life steps. In the UK, it is so much easier to just get general, everyday walking in, everyday steps, because you can actually walk places. So for instance, for me, maybe on a day off, I walk to the train station. I then walk from a different train station to a cafe. I have lunch with a girlfriend. Then maybe we walk around town a little bit. Then maybe I need to do a bit of errands. So I'm like walking to those locations. I walk back to the train station, take the train. I walk back from that station and back home. Then maybe I forget we need something for dinner that night. So then I'll walk to the supermarket and get something and then come back. And that is just like movement that is not necessarily planned. It just happens. Whereas in Canada and North America, the name of the game is driving. You have to drive everywhere. So if I was doing a similar thing in Canada, I would drive to the cafe. I would walk 5 steps into the cafe, have lunch with my friend, walk the 5 steps back to my car, drive to the supermarket. I'd be walking in the supermarket fair, but then I'd take the 5 steps back to my car, drive home. Like, driving is just, you have to drive everywhere. And if you live in Canada without a driver's license and without a car, it is so isolating because it is just that much more difficult to do anything on foot. The only way you can make that work is if you lived in a big city like Toronto and you could rely on public transport. But for me, for all of my friends and family, for all of the people that I know, none of us live in walkable cities in Canada. You have to drive, and getting those like just daily steps in has to be like so much more planned, because it's not going to happen organically like it does here. Number 2, we have to talk about seasonal energy. This is something that I still struggle with, even though I've lived in the UK for over 10 years now, which is crazy to think about. I still struggle with those damp, dark, miserable winters where there comes a point where I'm sat at my desk and I'm working and I realize like, I can't remember the last time I saw the sun. And that definitely plays into my health just overall. Maybe you're the same. I've tried sad lights. I've tried vitamin D supplementation. I've tried making an effort to get outside on those rare days when you can actually see the sun and try and soak up as much as I can. It is something that I still struggle with even now. It's tough. And I live in Kent, like the southeast of England, where I feel like we are very lucky weather-wise. I can't imagine living up north and the like daylight hours. Whereas in Canada, I feel like a lot of people have that image in their head where it's like, ooh, winters in Canada must be terrible. They're difficult in their own way. And something I think the British mind would have a hard time comprehending is getting like 3 feet of snow overnight and your boss expects you to be at work on time. So you have to get up early, you have to dig your car out of the snow, you gotta leave it heating up for quite a while because everything is frozen, you gotta de-ice all of the windows and the mirrors and stuff. Then you gotta drive to work on the ice. Obviously it's going to take you longer, so you need to leave earlier to make sure you get to work on time. Like, that is a winter in Canada. That stuff sucks. But I will say, we get so much more light, and I always took it for granted. And there's something so wonderful my 16-year-old self did not appreciate. In the wintertime, you go out and the sun is shining and it shines on the snow and the snow like sparkles. It's this beautiful spark and it reflects back that you could get a sunburn because it's so bright and sparkly. You're not gonna get that here. Another difference in terms of fitness, health, exercise, lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. Number 3, we need to talk about healthcare, which is obviously kind of important. Now, we're not gonna get into the nitty-gritty because frankly, I don't have time and I don't want to. But generally speaking, in the UK, you register with a GP. That is your sort of first port of call. You go to your GP, and it is free of charge at use. You go to your doctors, you're not paying for that. You just need to make sure that you're registered. Canada is very similar. We get provincial health cards. There's a lot of different laws, like provincially. So where I'm from in Ontario, you'd get your OHIP card, your Ontario Health Insurance card. Ontario Health Insurance Provincial, what does the P stand for? I was today years old when I learned what OHIP stands for. Ontario Health Insurance Plan. So you get a card when you go to your doctor, you like scan your card, they register your card, and it's free of use. Just like a GP, you go to your doctors, you're not paying for it. But you have to make sure you have your card expires, it's a photo ID, kind of like a driver's license, but you have to make sure your card is like valid. And then of course in America it's quite different. That is done through like insurance, and you have to find like the right network and which provider will be accepted for certain like procedures and that kind of stuff. I'm not familiar with that because that is not what happens in Canada. When you talk about healthcare, a lot of people will just assume Canada is like the US. It's not. Canada is much more like England or the UK in that respect. The one thing that I've really struggled here in England is actually getting an appointment. I know a lot of people are like, the NHS is so wonderful, the NHS is great. Until you have to use it. I don't know about you, but my GP, okay, you have to call for an appointment. We can't do it through the app. I know some GPs let you book through an app now, which is absolutely wonderful. I will literally cry the day my local GP lets you book on an app. But currently you can't do that. You have to call, and you have to call at 2 p.m. Not before, not after. If you call in the morning and say, hey, I'm having this issue, can I please get an appointment? They say you have to call back at 2 p.m. And then of course everybody calls at 2 p.m. and there's a queue of like 25 people. That will probably take you about an hour and a half perhaps to get an appointment, and the appointment is probably in 2 to 3 weeks. That is not something I've experienced in Ontario. Maybe things have changed. It sucks, I'll tell you that much. I've definitely been thinking more about my overall health since my last birthday. My 11th birthday in England, if you can believe it. Since moving to the UK, one thing that I've fallen in love with is weightlifting. I don't know if anyone else lifts weights out there, honestly. I love it. I've been trying to be more active and just like generally healthier, but honestly, I realized that I don't actually know what I should be focusing on. Like there's lots of advice online, but it's all just generic, general advice, and I don't know what I should be doing like for me personally, which is why I'm partnering with Do Health. It's a proactive health program that uses your blood test and lifestyle to create a personalized weekly action plan. All you have to do is a blood test every 4 months, then you follow the plan and track your progress over time. So I got my first blood test back, and my biological age, can you guess? It's 28. 5 years younger than my chronological age. I genuinely was surprised, and honestly it felt amazing. Based on some of my biomarkers, I've been implementing Do Health's recommendations, particularly in raising my HDL cholesterol. So I've been doing that by adding in more almonds and walnuts to my diet, plus more oily fish. And then I can track all of that through the app to keep accountable. I've also added in a 5-minute breathing exercise, which helps with stress management, something that I have always struggled with. And again, I can track it through the app. I've experimented with other health programs, but it's all just been like generic advice. This is totally different in that it's specifically tailored to me. Since tracking my progress, I feel really motivated. I feel like I'm moving in the right direction. I'm not just like grasping at straws and just doing like whatever I read online. And I will be super interested to see what my next blood test in 4 months shows. If you're curious about your own health, you can join the waitlist using my link down below. If you decide to join it, make sure to use my code Alanna and you'll lock in the early access pricing of less than 70p a day. Number 4, weather changes everything. What I found in the UK, if someone says, oh, it's raining, that is not a reason to cancel. You guys planned a big walk and it's raining, like, okay, just make sure your coat has a hood. In Canada, I think people are less likely to do stuff in the rain, where I feel like in the UK, you kind of like, if you were gonna cancel every time it rained, you simply would do nothing. On the flip side though, in Canada, you can actually get into like fairly dangerous weather territory. Growing up, I know we had loads of frostbite warnings, which I've never seen here. But in Canada, you get a frostbite warning, and basically they say like, don't go outside unless you absolutely have to. Because it's gotten to the point where the temperature is so low that if you are outside for extended periods of time and you have exposed skin, you are at risk to get frostbite. Number 5, you know what? I need a haircut. This is unrelated. Every time I wear my hair down in the summer here in England, even in the spring really, I feel like I get so sweaty because it's already hot. I don't have air conditioning. And then I've got all of this like sat on my back. Hold that thought. I need to put my hair up. Okay, that's better. I'll tell you what, having long hair in the winter time, wonderful. It's like a built-in scarf. Having long hair in the summertime, just like, I'm so sweaty. I think we are on number 5, and let's call this one weirdly social. Something that I was introduced to since moving to the UK is a little thing called park run. I'd never heard of this before. I'd never experienced this before. I feel like you would be hard pressed to find a British person who is not aware of what park run is. It's incredibly social, and I bet it's a great way to meet people, honestly. To be fair, I registered, but I never went. By comparison, I feel like in Canada, being outdoors can be a bit more solo, where park run is just like, I think it's more about being social than being about active. Than being active. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, if you are like me where you registered and you never went, I feel you. Number 6, let's talk about gyms versus gyms. In the UK, I have seen and also been a member of like leisure centers, which I would normally say leisure, but I'm trying for you guys, leisure centers. But these are community leisure centers where there's usually like some sort of gym fitness area. There's usually a pool. There's usually classes. There might also be stuff for kids. Like it's a very community-based place. For many years, I was a member at a leisure center, so I would go to work during the day, and then guess what? I would walk from my job to a community leisure center and I would work out. And then guess what? I would walk to a bus stop, take a bus home, and then walk from the bus stop home. And that was my life for honestly years. I did try getting into the pool and like doing lengths and stuff, but that was really annoying because then I have to shower or like partially shower and then take the bus home and then like properly shower, and it was just kind of annoying. Whereas by comparison, I feel like in Canada, you're much more likely to go to like a big box gym. You know, you've got a membership and you drive. You sure as hell are not walking there. You drive to the gym, you work out, you walk to your car, and you drive home. Number 7, what are you playing? Now this goes for both what are you playing and also what are you watching in terms of sports. In the UK, I'm gonna say most popular, and people are probably going to disagree, and that's okay. Rugby, cricket, football. If I could only pick 3, I think that's the 3 that I want. Rugby, football, cricket. Tennis is also quite big here as well. But that's kind of like, I think those are the most popular, the most common that people are playing and people are watching. In Canada, if I can only pick 3 most popular sports, I'm gonna go with hockey, as in ice hockey, basketball, and baseball. I feel like those are the most popular watched, most popular played. I know rugby is getting really big in Canada. That has only happened in the last few years. If we can only pick 3, I'm saying those 3. And everyone can disagree with me, and that's fine. Welcome to the internet. Everybody has a different opinion. And with that, number 8, I want to talk about how sports culture is totally different. So not only are the sports that we are watching and we are playing are different, but also the culture of the crowd, I think, is hugely different. On my channel, I have a video, actually a very popular video, which I was not expecting. I have a video reacting to British football chants. And if you are British and you hear that phrase, you know immediately British football chants are typically very funny, very brutal, and usually a bit vulgar. But they're perfectly acceptable. It's part of the culture. You would not be surprised to have that happen. It's It's part of the culture. It's what happens. Whereas I do not think you're going to see anything at all similar in Canada. And with that, there's actually kind of a viral, I guess would be the word, thing that happened at a baseball game in Ontario. And when I was thinking about like crowd culture, it made me think of this, and I Googled it because I couldn't remember the details. And if you're British, you might find this fascinating. So basically, it was 2016, which is literally 10 years ago, which is crazy. So in 2016, it was a Toronto Blue Jays playoff game. A fan threw beer onto the field. And it was a huge deal. The short version is basically the guy responsible surrendered to police after his photo went viral. He pleaded guilty to mischief, received a conditional discharge, sentenced to 12 months probation, 100 hours of community service, and was banned from all Major League Baseball games for a year. And then because of all of this, the Toronto Blue Jays banned the sale of beer in cans at the stadium. Fans were required to have their beers poured into plastic cups, and security and alcohol management policies were significantly tightened. And then on top of that, all because of this one incident, right? On top of that, stadiums across baseball enforce a strict fan code of conduct. Code of conduct, I said that weird. And throwing any object or beverage onto the field is an automatic ejection and can lead to permanent stadium bans and criminal charges. And I feel like when you watch clips of a British football match and people getting rowdy and stuff, and then you hear about this one instance where a fan threw beer one time, and all of this stuff happened as a result of it, I feel like kind of opposite vibes. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Number 9, if we're talking about fitness, exercise, lifestyle, all that fun stuff, we need to talk about a walk and a pub. Something that really surprised me when I first moved here, and it felt so British, all right? It just feels, as a Canadian, as a North American, it just feels so British when people will get together and go for a walk out in the countryside, wonderful walk, and you specifically end the walk at a pub. And maybe you just go in for a pint, maybe you go in for a full Sunday roast to like whatever you do inside, great. But the whole idea is you've laid out this walk so you will end at a pub. And I honestly don't think there's anything similar in Canada. Like when I was growing up, my parents and I would go for walks every weekend morning. Like when I was in school, every Saturday morning, every Sunday morning, we'd go for a walk. But we always ended up at our house, not at a pub. And we couldn't even walk to a pub from our house anyway. Number 10, portion sizes. I think this one is pretty obvious, but in the UK, the general portion sizes are so much smaller. Not in a like stingy kind of way, but in a way where you are served the amount of food that you are going to eat in that sitting. And in all likelihood, you're not gonna end up with loads left over that you wanna take home. Whereas in North America, it is so ingrained in the culture to have the bigger size. Again, not because you're necessarily going to eat it all in one sitting, although some people do, but because to-go boxes and like takeaway boxes are so common. They're part of the culture. They're kind of expected. So asking to get the rest of your meal wrapped up so you can take home and have, you know, another day is honestly kind of expected. A lot of times you don't even need to ask to get stuff wrapped up. They will just assume that you want it wrapped up. They'll bring boxes. It's just gonna happen like automatically. Number 11, and I feel like this could be an entire video in and of itself, but we're just gonna briefly touch on food regulations. Food regulations is kind of like a silent difference. It's not something that you actively think about, but there are a lot of food regulation differences between the UK and largely North America as a whole. So I wrote down a couple of the ones that I find the most noticeable in like day-to-day food consumption, at least for me. One thing that always drives me crazy is some Canadian beef cattle can be legally raised with hormone growth promoters. So they basically in Canada will give some cows steroids so they get bigger faster. The Brits do not like that. me included, I think that is gross. So not only can British cattle not be given steroids, not be given these like hormone growth injections, but you can't like import any meat that has had that done to it, and you can't sell it in the UK. Another one that stands out, and we have touched about this in previous videos because it really blew my mind, eggs. So in North America, Americans do this as well. The eggs are sanitized. The eggs are washed. But because they're done, because they've gone through that treatment, the shells are weaker, and it means that they have to be refrigerated. So growing up, we always had our eggs in the fridge because you have to. When I moved here and I was at the supermarket and you see eggs just like on the shelf with all of the baking goods and they're not in the refrigerated section, that was wild to me. But of course it's because the eggs are not washed. They don't need to be. They're not sanitized, they have thicker shells, and they do not need to be refrigerated. And this is one of those things where when I go back to Canada, I now get reverse culture shock, because it's like, you go to the supermarket and all the eggs are in the refrigerated section. It's like, that's so strange. But it's not like a personal choice, it's they have to be refrigerated. Anyway, there's loads of food regulation differences. Maybe this can be its own video itself, but it's definitely something that is noticeable, and it definitely has an impact on health and food and just general lifestyle stuff. Number 12, I want to talk about hike versus walk. In the UK, I have found that most British people will say they're going for a walk even if the walk is up the side of a mountain. In Canada, and maybe this is just from my experience, who I grew up with and hung out with and was around, whatever, I find Canadians tend to say hike as the default word, even if it's like around a park or flat terrain, like you're going for a hike. I mean, it's not a big difference, but the vibe is a big difference. And with that, number 13, I want to call this so unserious. And this is more to do with the clothing. So in the UK, you're going for a walk up the side of a mountain. You might have an old coat on that has a ripped hood and some wellies, and you're off. And you'll be off for hours. But in Canada, you're gonna go for a hike. I feel like Canadians tend to have like more of the branded clothing, you know, like more of the branded fashion clothing to go for that hike, to have the nice trail running shoes and the branded coat and that kind of stuff. Like the fashion, it's a bit more serious. If you have any weird like fitness exercise differences between the UK and North America, please leave a comment down below, or just leave a nice comment anyway, because it always helps. Big shout out to Do Health for partnering with this video. Don't forget to check them out in the video description. If you'd like to watch something else, how about this one? I did a solo day out vlog in the rain in England. Spoiler alert, I had a wonderful time. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye!